I transmigrated into a very beautiful background character. To be precise, I became the kind of pretty extra who only appeared once. In Chapter 3 and Chapter 79 of the original story, whose name wasn't even written consistently. In Chapter 3, she stood in a corner of the banquet hall and was complimented by the male lead. Tonight's champagne dress looks nice. In Chapter 79, at the Nelly charity auction, she appeared as a certain extremely beautiful socialite, used by the author to highlight how unbreakable the main couple's love was. That's it. No evil schemes. No cannon fodder role, no scene stealing. No plot interference. She was just beautiful. Beautiful. Like, the author got tired of writing the main plot and casually mentioned her to prove this world had high average looks. And I, Emma, became her. When I transmigrated, I was sitting in front of a vanity mirror with a dull ache in the back of my head. The face in the mirror was unrealistically beautiful. Dark hair, pale skin, slightly upturned eyes, straight nose, naturally water-red lips. The kind of face I would have stopped scrolling to save. In my past life, I stared at the mirror for a full minute before concluding God didn't let me become the female lead, but gave me a face that would make the female lead's team automatically give me center stage. That works. The system appeared. At this moment, a mechanical female voice sounded in my head. Welcome to the background character self-rescue system. Please survive to the finale without disrupting the main plot. Me, that's it system. That's it. I instantly relax. Compared to those cruel systems that forced missions and gave electric shock punishments, this background character self-rescue system was like a government job. Just stay alive. I was best at staying alive. The original book was called Ultimate Favoritism, a wealthy romance novel I stayed up all night reading in my past life. Male lead Ryan, top tier. Noble young master from elite circles. Cold and taciturn, immensely powerful female lead Sophie. Ordinary background but resilient and cute won the male lead's heart. With sincere devotion, ultimately gaining perfect love. The story included white moonlight business marriages, real versus fake socialites, family struggles, entertainment scandals, all the usual tropes. My current shell was called either Emma or Star. In the original text, the author didn't even care what her last name was. Only wrote that she had wealthy family background, stunning appearance, lazy temperament, disliked socializing. What a great character setup. Rather than compete with the main couple for plot, I'd rather live out this heaven-sent, leisurely, wealthy life properly. I woke up in the Wilson family's old mansion in the South District. A servant asked if I wanted to attend tonight's party. At the Miller family. I asked will many people go to the Miller party. She nodded, then I won't go. She was stunned. But we already RSVP, then say I have a headache. The servant looked troubled. I thought about it and changed my mind. Never mind. I'll go. Not for anything else. Mainly because the party in Chapter 3 of the original book was an important turning point where the main couple first developed real feelings. According to the system, I couldn't disrupt the main plot. And this beautiful background character did appear in the original text. So I should dutifully make the trip, show my face, and continue being scenery. That night, I truly experienced what stunning appearance meant. In terms of destructive hour, I just wore the simplest champagne satin slip dress, too lazy for much jewelry, only hanging pearl earrings. Going downstairs, even Mrs. Chin, who cared for me for 10 years, was stunned for 2 seconds. Miss, today, you look like you're going to acquire someone's ancestral business. I was modest, not bad. Mainly good foundation. The Miller party was at the Hillside Club. As soon as I entered, I saw the main couple. The original book didn't lie. Ryan was truly handsome, standing in the crowd like a walking haute couture tombstone. Sophie was genuinely cute. Long, straight black hair, clear eyes. Obviously a sweet romance novel's designated female lead. I secretly gave this official couple a gentle thumbs up, then quietly retreated to a corner with my champagne. I just wanted to follow the script without causing trouble. But obviously this face wouldn't let me keep a low profile. I'd barely stood still when 3 strange men approached with drinks. The first asked if I was the Wilson family's eldest daughter. The second asked if I'd like to get acquainted. The third was boldest, saying directly, Miss Wilson, you're more stunning than movie stars. I maintained a polite smile. Thanks, but that compliment sounds like you're calling me fake. He choked. I was looking for an excuse to slip away when a cold male voice came from behind. She doesn't like being surrounded. I turned to see Ryan. He was looking down at me, his gaze pausing on my dress hem for a moment. Tonight's champagne dress looks nice. Perfect. A line from Chapter 3 had arrived. I immediately applauded myself. Mentally, plot completed. Time to exit. So I nodded at him and professionally replied, Thank you, Mr. Miller. You also look like a very expensive financial report today, Ryan. The nearby men almost could hold back their laughter. While everyone was stunned, I smoothly left the battlefield center, lifting my dress. But just reaching the terrace, I heard the system notification. Congratulations. Host successfully completed first background character appearance. Reward, 1 million in cash legally deposited. I almost spit out my champagne. You didn't mention there were bonuses. The system was silent for 2 seconds. You didn't ask either. My love for this world instantly rose another level. Beautiful, wealthy, relaxed lot and money for just showing my face. This wasn't transmigration. This was retirement preparation. That night, I did 2 serious things at home. First, checked my account. Second, searched through every cabinet in the original owner's room. The former confirmed the system wasn't joking with me. The latter revealed the original owner was much more interesting than I'd imagined. Her walk-in closet was huge, with dresses and jewelry organized neatly by color. But in an inconspicuous camphor wood box at the very back, instead of jewelry, there was a thick stack of jewelry design sketches. Not casual doodles, very serious. Complete drafts, earrings, necklaces, brooches, tiaras. Each page drawn in extreme detail with notes on jam, cutting angles, and metal proportions. One page even showed a complete begonia-themed bridal jewelry set. Looking at those sketches, I felt something stir gently in my heart. The original book only said she was lazy by nature, disliked socializing, but nobody mentioned she was doing this. Privately, the system spoke up. Host original owner's hidden dream. Unlocked was her dream to become a jewelry designer. I spread out those sketches page by page and suddenly smiled. That's nice. I happened to study design in my past life too. The system was obviously stunned. Why didn't you mention this before? You didn't ask either. It fell silent. From that day, I found myself a proper pastime. Days spent going out for plot scenes. Nights drawing sketches in my room. The original owner had steady hands and good taste. Combined with my past life design experience, the drawing felt extraordinarily smooth. Sometimes, when inspiration struck, I could draw from after dinner until 2 a.m. When Mrs. Chun brought me midnight milk, she looked relieved. Mrs. Chun, I've always been well-rounded. She smiled, draped a shawl over me, and didn't disturb me further. A month later, I took redesign portfolios to meet Sarah, the most famous independent jewelry curator in Sea City. This character didn't exist in the original book, which reassured me as long as it wasn't a main plot character. I could develop. Really. Sarah was around 40, short-haired, red-lipped, wearing a sharply tailored white suit. She looked at me like examining whether a raw stone was worth carving. After flipping through my sketches, her first words were, "Who drew these for you?" "Me." "I did." She looked up with finally some interest. "Isn't the Wilson family eldest daughter supposed to hate work?" "So, I don't want to work." I was honest. "I just want to make things I like while earning money on the side." Sarah suddenly smiled. "At least you're not hypocritical." She didn't agree to collaborate immediately, only said I could study at her studio for 3 months. If I could handle it, we discussed the future. I agreed immediately. From that day, I began living a very split life. Days as the beautiful Wilson family eldest daughter, attending lunches, charity events, family dinners, wearing haute couture, smiling expensively. Nights, diving into Sarah's studio, removing makeup, wearing aprons, learning from craftsmen about wax models, stone setting, prong adjustments. My fingers covered in tiny cuts. I was surprisingly happy, not the happiness from being called beautiful, nor from seeing more zeros in my bank account, but finally knowing what else I could create besides being beautiful. For the next 3 months, my life was a masterclass in schizophrenia. By day, I was Emma Wilson, the walking embodiment of trust fund perfection. I attended garden parties where the tea tasted like wet grass and the gossip was cheaper than the napkins. I nodded at appropriate intervals, let my devastatingly beautiful face do 90% of the heavy lifting, and occasionally collected a fat direct deposit from the system whenever I successfully served as a background prop in the main plot. Ding. Host attended the equestrian club where the female lead fell off a horse. You looked adequately bored in the background. Reward, $500,000. By night, I was just the lowest on the totem pole at Sarah's studio. My immaculate manicures were replaced by jagged nails and bandages. My hands smelled perpetually of polishing compound, sulfur, and brass dust. And I loved it. One rainy Tuesday night, I was struggling with the prong setting for a sapphire. The metal was stubborn, refusing to fold over the stone. I cursed, adjusting my magnifying visor, completely oblivious to the world, until a shadow fell over my workbench. "Your angle is too steep. You're going to chip the pavilion." I jumped, nearly dropping the burin. Standing there was a man I hadn't seen before. He was tall, wearing a charcoal turtleneck that looked expensive in a quiet way and had the kind of sharp, observant eyes that made you feel like you were under a microscope. He held a cup of black coffee, looking at my messy workbench with mild amusement. "Who are you?" I asked, pushing the visor up into my messy hair. "Julian," he said, taking a sip. "I supply Sarah's rough stones. And you must be the Wilson heiress she's using as cheap labor." I narrowed my eyes. "I'm not cheap. I work for free." He chuckled, a low, raspy sound. He set his coffee down, leaned over, and gently tapped my wrist. "Drop your elbow. Use the weight of the tool, not the force of your wrist. Like this." He didn't touch my hands, but his proximity smelled of rain and cedar. I adjusted my posture, applied pressure, and the metal gave way perfectly, securing the stone. "Not bad," he murmured, "though you have a smudge of silver polish right on the tip of your nose. It ruins the whole, untouchable socialite aesthetic." I wiped my nose with the back of a filthy glove, probably making it worse. "Good thing I'm off the clock. Leave the rough stones on the counter, Julian. The heiress is busy." From that night on, Julian became a fixture in my double life. He was an eccentric gem broker who seemed to operate on his own time zone. He didn't care about my face, which was a massive relief. He only cared about my lines, my symmetry, and my terrifying obsession with the begonia set. The begonia set was the original owner's magnum opus. A necklace, earrings, and a tiara designed to look like a cascade of blooming begonias, crafted from rose gold, pigeon blood rubies, and crushed diamonds. For weeks, I poured every ounce of my past life design knowledge and my current life obsession into making it a reality. Sarah eventually noticed. She stood over my shoulder one evening, watching me polish the final petal of the necklace. "It's breathtaking," she said quietly. "You didn't just draw it. You breathed life into it." "Thanks," I said, rubbing my aching neck. "I think I've inhaled enough silver dust to set off metal detectors." Sarah smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "There's a major charity auction coming up. The Nelly Charity Gala. I want to submit this set under our studio's name, anonymously. Let the work speak for itself. What do you say?" My heart skipped a beat. The Nelly Charity Auction. Chapter 79. The system abruptly chimed in my head. Alert! Major plot node approaching. Chapter 79. The Nelly Charity Auction. Objective: appear as an extremely beautiful socialite to trigger the male lead's jealousy-inducing plot armor for the female lead. Do not disrupt the auction outcome. Reward: $5 million and system completion. I stared at the begonia necklace shimmering on the velvet bust.
Aim.
Sarah asked. "Do it," I told her, grinning. "Put it in the auction, but keep my name out of it. I have a party to attend." The lead-up to Chapter 79 was exhausting. The main couple, Ryan and Sophie, were going through their canonical misunderstanding phase. According to the original novel, this was when Chloe, the archetypal vicious second female lead, returned from abroad. Chloe was aggressively pursuing Ryan, making Sophie feel inadequate due to her ordinary background. Ryan, being the emotionally constipated male lead he was, didn't know how to reassure Sophie, leading to a cold war. My job was to stay out of the crossfire. Unfortunately, my face had a gravity of its own. At a yacht party 3 days before the auction, I was hiding by the buffet, minding my own business and eating a very excellent scallop, when Ryan actually walked up to me. "Miss Wilson," he said, his voice clipped and cold. I almost choked on the scallop. System, I panicked internally. Why is the male lead talking to me? Warning. Unintended plot deviation detected. Host's beauty stat is overpowering male lead's peripheral vision. Please redirect his attention immediately. I swallowed hard, slapping on a polite, vacant smile. "Mr. Miller. Nice boat." Ryan looked at me. In the original text, he never noticed anyone but Sophie. But right now, he looked tired, rubbing his temples. "I heard from my mother that your family is looking into the South Bay development project." He was trying to talk business. He was using me as a distraction from his fight with Sophie, who is currently watching us from across the deck with tearful eyes. Oh hell no, I thought. I am not becoming the collateral damage in your romance. South Bay. I blinked perfectly, acting as vapid as humanly possible. "Oh, I don't know anything about that. I think dirt is so dirty. You know who is really smart about things like that, though?
Sophie.
I saw her reading a Financial Times magazine earlier. She's so capable. You're very lucky, Mr. Miller." "Excuse me, I think I see a waiter with more scallops." I practically fled, leaving Ryan blinking in confusion. I looked back just in time to see him walk over to Sophie, his expression softening as he spoke to her.
Ding.
Crisis averted. Plot integrity maintained. Reward, $10,000. I sighed, leaning against the railing. This face was a hazard. "You really hate him, don't you?" A voice drawled from the shadows of the upper deck. I looked up. Julian was leaning over the railing, a cigarette unlit between his lips, looking down at me. He was wearing a tailored navy suit that made him look dangerously sharp. "What are you doing here?" I asked, genuinely surprised. I didn't know gem brokers went to high society yacht parties. "I go where the money is," he said, walking down the spiral staircase to join me. "And I saw you run away from the most powerful man in Sea City, like he was carrying the plague." "He's carrying something worse," I muttered. A dramatic plotline. "I'm allergic." Julian chuckled, stepping closer. He reached out and gently tapped the back of my hand. There was a tiny, healing scratch there from my burin. "Make sure you wear gloves to the auction, Emma. Can't have the high society seeing the heiress with calluses." "I'll wear whatever I want." I shot back, but my heart did a weird, offbeat flutter. Julian smiled, a genuine, warm thing that transformed his face. "I'll see you at the Nelly, Em. I hear there's a spectacular begonia set up for grabs." The Nelly charity auction was held at the Grand Atrium, a venue so dripping in gold leaf and crystal chandeliers it gave me a headache. This was my final mission, the finale. Survive tonight, be pretty, don't break the plot, and I get to retire at 22 with more money than a small country, free to make jewelry for the rest of my life. I adhered strictly to the script. I wore a backless, emerald green silk gown. I swept my dark hair over one shoulder. I wore no jewelry except for a simple pair of diamond studs. I looked like a lazy, untouchable siren. When I walked into the ballroom, the silence that rippled through the crowd was palpable. A system, I thought, rate my entrance. System evaluation, devastating. Background, character presence, maximized. Proceed to designated corner. I glided to a shadowed alcove near the bar, accepted a glass of champagne, and waited for the show to begin. The plot played out beautifully. Ryan and Sophie arrived, looking stunning together. Chloe, the villainess, wore a red dress and glared at them. Then came the climax of the chapter. Chloe walked up to Ryan, deliberately speaking loudly enough for Sophie and the rest of the room to hear. "Ryan, darling," Chloe purred. "It's a shame about the auction catalog tonight. Nothing seems worthy of you. Though I suppose compared to someone truly stunning like Emma Wilson over there, most things look rather plain. Wouldn't you agree?" Chloe's tactic was textbook. Use the most beautiful woman in the room to make the female lead feel insecure, and force the male lead to awkwardly defend her. The whole ballroom went dead silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to me. I was mid-sip of my champagne. I froze, maintaining my absolute best, "I am a beautiful, unbothered potted plant" expression. Sophie looked down, biting her lip. Ryan's jaw tightened. In the original book, this was the moment Ryan was supposed to put his arm around Sophie and say, "True beauty isn't on the surface." To me, Sophie is the only one in the room. But because of the suffocating silence, Ryan hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. Damn it, I thought. If he doesn't say the line, the plot breaks. I casually lowered my glass, looked directly at Chloe, and let out a soft, dismissive laugh. It sounded like crystal clinking against ice. "Miss Chloe," I drawled, projecting my voice just enough. "Please don't use me as a prop for your unrequited flirting. It's embarrassing. Mr. Miller clearly only has eyes for his partner. If you need glasses, my family's medical foundation can sponsor you." The crowd gasped. Somebody actually coughed to hide a laugh. Chloe turned an ugly shade of purple. Ryan looked at me with a flash of gratitude, immediately wrapping his arm around Sophie. "Emma's right," Ryan said loudly, finding his cue. "To me, Sophie is the only one in the room."
Ding.
Critical plot point secured. Male lead's devotion established. Host's background status slightly elevated, but acceptable. Final phase initiating. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, retreating deeper into the shadows. I'd done it. The story was safe. "Nice save," a voice whispered by my ear. I turned. Julian was standing next to me, holding a glass of whiskey. "You're everywhere," I whispered back. "I told you I'd be here," he said softly, his eyes tracing the line of my neck. "You look beautiful tonight, Emma, but you look better with silver dust on your cheek." Before I could process the sudden heat rushing to my face, the auctioneer tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our mystery lot of the evening. Donated anonymously by Sarah's studio. The Begonia Cascade." The velvet curtain on the stage pulled back. The spotlight hit the glass display case. My breath caught. Even from the back of the room, the begonia set looked alive. The rubies caught the light, bleeding a vibrant, passionate red, while the gold wrapped around the gems like protective vines. It was intricate, wild, and utterly flawless. A collective murmur swept through the room. Even the jaded socialites were sitting up straighter. "Starting bid is $5 million, the auctioneer announced. Paddles flew up instantly. $6 million. 7.
10.
In the original novel, Ryan buys the final piece of jewelry for Sophie for an exorbitant price to prove his love, crushing Chloe's spirit completely. Right on cue, Chloe raised her paddle. 15 million. She smirked at Sophie. Ryan's eyes narrowed. He raised his paddle. 20 million. The room gasped. 25, Chloe spat. 30. Ryan countered without blinking. I watched the numbers climb, feeling a surreal sense of detachment. 30 million. For something I made with my own 2 hands, late at night, fueled by instant coffee and a dead girl's dream. It was intoxicating. 35 million. Chloe yelled, her voice straining. Ryan looked at Sophie. Sophie squeezed his hand and nodded. Ryan raised his paddle. 50 million. Silence slammed into the room. Chloe dropped her paddle, defeated. 50 million going once, the auctioneer stammered. Twice. Sold. To Mr. Ryan Miller? Applause erupted. Ryan kissed Sophie's forehead. The plot was complete. The villainess was defeated. True love won. Ding. Main plot concluded. Status: perfect survival. System unbinding process initiated. Final reward of $50 million transferring to host's account. Have a nice life, Emma. The mechanical voice faded from my mind forever. The heavy, invisible weight of the narrative vanished from my shoulders. I was no longer a background character. I was just me. But the drama wasn't over. Suddenly, a sharp, abrasive voice cut through the applause. It was Sarah's former rival, a pompous designer named Vance, who had been sitting in the front row. Wait a moment, Vance shouted, standing up. I protest this auction. That design is stolen. The applause died instantly. Ryan frowned, stepping forward. What are you talking about, Vance? Vance pointed at the stage. Sarah's studio hasn't produced anything of that caliber in a decade. Furthermore, the prong-setting style and the pedal motifs are clearly ripped off from the late Italian master, Bellini. This anonymous designer is a fraud, selling plagiarism to charity. Whispers broke out like wildfire. Sarah, who was standing near the stage, looked furious but trapped. As a curator, she didn't make the piece, so she couldn't defend the microscopic technical details Vance was attacking. Can Sarah's studio produce the designer? Vance sneered. Let them come up here and explain the mathematical ratio of the ruby cuts. If they can't, this auction is a scam. Ryan looked annoyed. Sarah, who made the piece? Sarah hesitated, her eyes scanning the room, eventually landing on me in the shadows. She wouldn't out me. We had a deal. I looked at the begonia set on the stage. My hands cramped with the phantom memory of holding the pliers, of bleeding over that metal, of pouring my soul into making sure the original Emma's dream didn't die in a camphor wood box. Screw the background. The story was over anyway. I set my champagne glass down on a passing waiter's tray. Hold my drink, I murmured to Julian. I stepped out of the shadows. The emerald silk of my dress caught the light as I walked down the center aisle. The murmurs died down, replaced by stunned confusion. Emma Wilson, someone whispered. What is she doing? I walked straight up the stairs onto the stage, ignoring Vance, ignoring Ryan, and walked over to the microphone. The ratio of the ruby cuts, I said, my voice echoing clearly through the atrium, is not Bellini's. It's a modified brilliant step cut, precisely angled at 42 degrees on the pavilion to maximize the refraction of the pigeon blood inclusions. Bellini used a 38-degree angle, which sacrificed fire for depth. I chose the former because begonias are meant to look alive, not buried. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Vance stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a dying fish. You? That's impossible. You're a socialite. I'm a lot of things, I said coldly, looking down at him. But I'm not a thief. I designed the set. I forged the gold. I set the stones. If you want to examine my workbench, you're welcome to. But if you ever publicly slander my studio again, I will buy your brand and liquidate it just to fire you. Vance shrank back into his seat, completely destroyed. The crowd was frozen in shock. The beautiful, lazy, untouchable Emma Wilson was a master jeweler? Ryan looked at me, genuine respect in his eyes for the first time. You made this, Miss Wilson? I did. I smiled, a real, unpracticed smile. Congratulations on the winning bid, Mr. Miller. Your fiancé has excellent taste. Take good care of it. I didn't wait for the applause. I turned and walked off the stage, out the side door, and into the cool night air of the terrace. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a caged bird. I had broken character. I had taken center stage. And the sky didn't fall. A heavy suit jacket was draped over my bare shoulders. It smelled of cedar and rain. I turned around. Julian was leaning against a stone balustrade, looking at me with an expression that made my breath hitch. It wasn't the look of a man admiring a beautiful painting. It was the look of a man who had just watched a storm tear through a city and loved the destruction. You didn't tell me you were going to drop a bomb on high society tonight, Julian said softly. I improvised, I said, pulling his jacket tighter around myself. Are you going to tell me my form was sloppy? Julian stepped closer, closing the distance between us. He reached out, taking my right hand. He gently rubbed his thumb over the rough calluses at the base of my fingers, the tiny scars that the emerald dress couldn't hide. Your form, Julian murmured, his eyes locking onto mine, was flawless. He wasn't just a gem broker, I suddenly realized. The way the venue staff bowed to him, the way he carried himself. Who are you, really, Julian? I whispered. Julian Miller, he said simply. Ryan's estranged older brother. The black sheep who prefers dirty rocks to clean boardrooms. I came back to see if the city had anything worth staying for. He raised my hand and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to my scarred knuckles. Turns out, he whispered against my skin, it does. I looked up at the moon, feeling the cool breeze on my face, the warmth of Julian's hand in mine, and the profound, beautiful silence in my head where the system used to be. The original novel was titled Ultimate Favoritism. As Julian pulled me into a slow, breathless kiss under the stars, I realized the author got one thing right. This world really did have perfect love. They just forgot to write mine, which was fine by me. I preferred to craft my own.